introduce our speaker. His name is Dave Perry, and he's the owner and CEO of Cascade Toy Limited, which is located in North Bend, Washington. Over 15,000 gift shops, toy stores, zoos, museums carry his toys. And the neat thing about Dave is that he graduated from BYU with a degree in psychology, but he also returned and received his master's degree in 2007 in counseling psychology. And currently he does part-time counseling for LDS Family Services, and he also has his own private counseling practice. He's been married to his wife, Joanne, for 30 years. They have 5 kids, 7 grandchildren. And something else I learned about him is that he was actually a football stud, so I think that's pretty awesome. But he's a very successful entrepreneur, has so much knowledge and wisdom to share with you, and his business has grown internationally. So let's give a round of applause to Dave Perry.
All right. Well, am I live on the mic? Okay. All right. Well, it's good to be with you. I graduated from BYU 30 years ago, so I'm living and walking proof that there is life after graduation and well into your career. I still have a life, and things are going well. It's a privilege to be back here at BYU. Things have changed a lot since I've been gone. Rent is one of them. We used to have a 2-bedroom apartment just off of campus down here for $135 a month. Can you believe that? Of course, then I used to work a job downtown for $250 an hour. So, yeah, there's some trade-offs, right? Yeah. It's good to be back. I've been doing these lecture series now for, it's well over 10 years, I think. I didn't do one last year, but I try to get down when I can. I'm delivering a son to the MTC on Wednesday, so this trip kind of coincides nicely, and he's our youngest, so we'll be empty nesters soon. The way the presentation works is I'm going to tell you a little bit about Cascade Toy, how we started, or how my career path went real quickly. I'm going to leave a lot of time for Q&A in the end. I'll tell you how we started up the company and financed it and some of that kind of stuff. Excuse me. And then I'm going to bribe you for good questions. With good questions, you get a toy, okay? If it's a bad question, I'll be honest, you'll still get a toy, but it won't be as cool. So ask some good questions, you get some toys, and if these aren't your cup of tea, then maybe you know somebody who's they would be for. So anyway, is that fair enough? All right. So, all right. So here's the, there we go. Can we disable that sound at all? My son thought he was who I depend upon for these things. I thought it would be cool to have a little Star Wars thing going on there, which actually fits because I did sell Star Wars toys. But graduated from the Y, and I was hired by, I worked a management consulting job while I was here, doing stand-up training and such for companies on a total commission basis. Does Chuck Coonrod come down for lectures anymore? Western Leadership Group? No. I work for him. He's a founder and the entrepreneurs in the center. But I worked for those guys on a commission basis, and I had my degree in psychology. How many non-business majors do we have here? All right. There's proof, you know, you don't have to be a business major to have success in business. Although, I'll tell you more about that. I had to go out and we moved up to Seattle after graduation. I intended to do the same thing that I've been doing here, but our client list in Seattle meant nothing, you know, because it was all Utah-based companies, and they didn't know KSL, they didn't know all the different companies that we'd done work for. And I had about $750 in my pocket, and a wife and a daughter, and another daughter on the way, as it turned out. So I had to go get a job. And so I hooked up with some management recruiters, and one of the interviews was with a toy company. And it happened to be Kenner Toys, who was owned by General Mills at the time. They owned Kenner and Parker Brothers and another one nobody remembers. And I took the job. And some of you played with those toys. Play-Doh? Anybody? Yeah. And Star Wars toys? It was the industry, it was the top of the business back in that time. Yeah, Spirograph, Stretch Armstrong, anybody? Yeah, yeah. Any of them dry up on you? They got a pin. There was corn syrup on the inside of those, so they'd turn rock solid on you if oxygen was introduced over a period of time. I worked for Kenner Toys, and then took a higher-paying job with a game company, Lakeside Games, which you probably also have not heard of, but you played some of the games: Aggravation, Perfection, Barrel of Monkeys, okay, games like that. And they paid a lot more, but then, this dates me, but then Atari came out. Who? But the board game business really tanked with that, because everybody wanted to play the electronic things, even as rudimentary as Atari was. People were spending their money there. And so they went Chapter 11. And that gave me a business opportunity to become a manufacturer's representative. Some of you don't know what those are, but they're independent salespeople that you're representing different toy or different companies on a commission basis. Usually medium to small companies that don't want to or can't afford to hire a sales staff of their own with all the commensurate benefits and so on. And so I did that, working for Lakeside, who was still operating in Chapter 11, as well as other companies. Okay? So started a manufacturer's rep firm with a partner. That lasted about 3 years. His value set and my value set were a little different. He liked girlfriends in every major city. I didn't kind of like that idea, particularly when I was helping pay for that as his 50-50 partner. So we parted after a few years. He bought me out, and I started another rep firm, which then I began traveling different parts of Asia, mostly Hong Kong to begin with, because a lot of the companies that I represented had offices and showrooms in Hong Kong. And as an outgrowth of that, I began doing some importing on my own, which took me to South Korea, because I was making soft toys, and that was really the hub of stuffed animals development, and then eventually to Indonesia and then China. I fell in love with the importing side, so much so that it was the first thing I'd do in the morning, and this is, of course, before emails, right? Faxes were even kind of new. This is terrible. The first fax machine I bought was at Costco, a Xerox. It cost $1,200. Yeah, but it revolutionized the world. You know, the faxes. Wow, this is cool. And of course, now emails and being able to send digital images over email saves us a ton of money, because now I can see pictures of items that we're developing before I have to see samples. It saves a lot of money in shipping. So anyway, I fell in love with importing. Eventually, started my own company, Cascade Toy, which we designed, developed our own toys, imported them into the U.S., and sold them. I operated that from '91 until I sold the company in 2005 to a company called Playvisions out of Seattle also, that I'd known for 20-plus years. And they approached me. The deal was good, and they persuaded me to stay on as a consultant, but thinking as a business owner and everything else, it was hard for me to detach. I'd been so much involved in A to Z in the company that I got fully involved, and they didn't know anything about making stuffed animals, so they asked me to stay on and run that division. So I did that, and I'm still working there with them, and I'm enjoying not having to be the hirer and firer of people, worrying about payrolls and, you know, forklifts and all the other things that I had to worry about before. So that part I very much enjoy. And then, being an entrepreneur at heart, I went back to school. I was looking ahead to retirement. What am I going to do when I retire? And I thought, why not get a master's degree in psychology? So I went back. Took about 3 years doing the nights and weekends thing. Interned at LDS Family Services and still do a little work for them. And then have a small private practice on the side. But frankly, I'm so busy with the toy thing. You know, the counseling is just kind of, I'm just keeping enough to keep in the game so I don't lose my edge, you know. So that's kind of what I'm doing, all right, in my career path. I'm going to quickly run through this model. Am I blocking it? So you can kind of see how we did things. It was late '91 when we started. It's '92 up there. We never had any more than 10 full-time employees. We outsourced everything we possibly could, everything from warehousing all the way through. It was a way for me to keep a fixed cost on things that I could project and plan for. You know, you could go out there and get a big warehouse, but you know you're going to pay the same amount of rent every month, whether it's full or whether it's not. I preferred to pay based on how much I had in the warehouse, so we use public warehousing, for example. 150 sales reps, but they were commission only. So if they didn't sell, they didn't get paid. If they didn't sell for too long, they'd get fired, and then we'd hire somebody else that could do the job in the territory that they were working in. Eventually, we grew up to 15,000 customers, doing mostly business in the U.S. and Canada. Since then, since I've sold to Playvisions, our market's been expanded greatly. Now we're selling actively in Europe, Russia, Ukraine, and South and Central America, as well as Japan and South Korea, and even now, which is really weird, selling to the retail market in China, which is, you're so used to taking out, you know, as a manufacturer and shipping to other parts of the world, but the middle class is growing in China, and there's a demand for some of our goods. So the customer profile you see up there, those are the kind of stores we dealt with. We specifically did not go after and did not seek business from the mass market big box retailers. I had been there, I had done that earlier in my career, and I decided I wanted to make a little money this time going around with it, and the profit margins that they force you to take weren't acceptable to me. And so we did not seek or do business with the big retailers. And so, what else? The design, development, manufacturing. In the beginning, we started strictly in South Korea because that was really where the soft toy business was best done. The Korean designers did an excellent job and still do. And we could do very small production runs, and it was very favorable to start a new business that way. I could literally buy 288 pieces of an item or 432 pieces of an item and get it made. Today, in China, I can't, it's got to be at least 3,600 pieces to get the factory to go into production. And you get no thank yous for 3,600 because it's still not a big number for them. They really prefer much larger quantities. And initially, when we started manufacturing in China, it was outside of Shanghai, a town called Suzhou, which now we manufacture in multiple cities throughout China. But our warehouse distribution, Seattle, when I first began, we had to go the SBA loan, which was a whole different experience. I had no idea what I was going in for with that. All the disclosure and all the information that they insisted upon having was a little bit like, well, it wasn't very comfortable. You know, it just wasn't. It was like going to a doctor that you didn't want to really go to. But we went through it, got the SBA loan, but immediately we were underfinanced. The loan was only for like $300,000. And I found that to carry an inventory to service a nationwide account base required an inventory of closer to $750,000. So I was undercapitalized from the get-go. So I faced a real problem. I had already leveraged everything I owned. I took seconds and thirds on every asset that I had. I even tried to sell labor off of some of my kids, you know, thinking, well, maybe, you know, they could do lawns or something. Help the old man, you know. Just kidding. But so as it went out, I only had one option, and the option was I went to the factories that I did business with, and I said, listen, I am not going to continue to operate unless you give me credit in addition to what I'm currently doing. And if you can give me 30 days, 60 days, 90 days of credit, ship me the goods and let me wait, you know, 60 to 90 days to pay you, then I can stay in business. Fortunately for me and for them, because I'm a loyal guy, they extended credit and enabled me to stay in business and continue. It's an unconventional way. Not too many other people that I know have gone that route. But I was fortunate in that I had been straight up with them before, and they trusted me and I trusted them, and it worked out. And So that's how you don't see that kind of financing mentioned in too many textbooks, I don't think. But it worked for me. Once we paid off the SBA loan, which took 2 years, it was a 15-year loan, but some junior loan officer, he sat me down one day and he said, you're basically insolvent. And having a little bit of pride, I said, have you ever done anything entrepreneurial in your life? I said, no, very few entrepreneurs that I know start a new business and immediately turn a profit. It takes a while to be able to turn a profit. I said, you're telling me I'm insolvent? I said, that's like fingernails on a chalkboard to an entrepreneur. I said, I'm not insolvent. I'm paying all my bills and I'm current with everybody. The fact that I owe more than I'm worth, technically I guess I'm insolvent. So anyway, the only way to get even with that bank, I'm not vindictive, but the only way was to pay off the 15-year loan in 2. So we did that and then moved all of our financing to Hong Kong. And they did very good for us there. So that's a little bit of the profile there. The marketing side is very basic and simple. I got to figure out a good place to stand where I'm not blocking people. That's how we did trade shows. There's 1 million of those around, gift, toy trade shows, very expensive way to market. But it's the only effective way of really meeting a lot of buyers face-to-face, that you need to make contact and showing them the toys, letting them see them and play with them and figure out how they work. Trade magazines, we did no consumer advertising. Very expensive. I wasn't interested in building the Cascade toy brand. I was more interested in just selling product. And to build the brand per se, that would have been an ego thing on me. I just wanted to build cool product and have retailers say, wow, that's neat, I want it. And so we focused on the trade magazine, the commission sales reps, of course, and then various websites that we use to help market the product. A little bit on creating toys. Now that I'm with PlayVisions, I've had some freedom to create things that we were sitting around one day, a bunch of us, and some of you guys have seen these, but this is kind of a new one. But PlayVisions has made for years these hats that you stretch and put up on your head. I'm not going to demo it because I got to keep my hair looking just so nice, but you can stretch these and put them on your head. Some of you have probably used them or seen them on other people. Some people put them on bike helmets. They're insane. But it's a stretchy stuff. It's called Hyperflex. It's an elastomer, and it's just a fun thing. But anyway, we were sitting around one day stretching, and I stretched one of these, a little one, over a head of a stuffed animal. And I thought, whoa, that's kind of cool. So we got to thinking that putting a little hat like this on a stuffed animal could be kind of a fun, weird thing that nobody else has done before. And anymore, it's about something unique and innovative that's different. So we did that. Took about 6 months to figure out how to do it. They all have to be hand sewn. We tried gluing them and a million different things. But it took a guy with a psych degree to figure out how to do this. All the engineers were, we can't do it. But that won't work. You got to do this. I said, hey, how about we just pay people to stitch it on? And they said, okay. And with the labor rates that we pay, it cost me about a nickel, 6 cents to have each hat sewn on. So that's not bad. It takes about 14 stitches. So we make the zibbies, and then the stretch zoo. I thought, well, as long as we're on a roll, why don't we use that same material and make arms that stretch on stuffed animals? So we do monkeys and lions and tigers and frogs where you stretch the legs, and ducks, and now we're doing an elephant, Huh? What's not fun about this business? Plus, I can't do it really in here because there's so many things, but you can really fling these. You got to be careful, though. One of my grandsons did that and broke something on my wife, so now I'm in the doghouse. But the development of these toys isn't rocket science. You take a basic drawing like that, and I use designers that are freelance all over the country. They each have their own specialty. Depending on the look that I'm looking for and that I need, I'll use a different one. An artist comes up with that drawing, I tweak it to have it look like I want it to look. We have somebody design the arms that we're going to make molds for, so we can do the elastomer materials, the thermoplastic rubber, and then you're off to the races. The mold costs about $5,000. Say, for example, on that monkey with the arms, it's about $5,000 for the mold, and then it cost me about 33 cents per pair to make them. And you add that into the cost of the goods of the plush. So you see the development of the toy. In the end, I have to sit back and think, okay, what's this going to cost? Are the retailers going to pay for this? It may be the coolest toy in the world, but if it's too much money, nobody's going to buy it. So, will somebody pay $6.99 for this? Yeah. But $12.99? Don't know. Could be, Here's one toy that we developed that is kind of fun, but it's got a problem.
Let's go.
Kind of fun. Is that Shania Twain? Is that okay? That's the first inherent problem. Is I asked the company outside of Nanjing that makes these, is that copyrighted? Have you got the rights to use it? And they, no. And so they sent me this big long catalog of all the different songs, but they had no copyrights on any of them. And I said, can't do that. I got to have copyrighted stuff. So then we went to another song, but that's not what killed it. In the end, you would have had to have paid, $20 or more for that. And in my mind, the factory doesn't know it yet, so you've got the inside track here, but we're not going to buy it. We're not going to use it. This is too expensive. It's fun, and everything else, but if I could charge you $15 for that, let's say, I think we could do okay. But I can't. It doesn't work out economically. And this is what happens. You build products sometimes, and when you get it all together, you look at it and think, is this going to work? And sometimes the answer is no. So you move on to things. Okay? So in the Zibbies, like I said, we get the drawings. Some of them are the artists are more rudimentary. That's the drawing for that pink flamingo over there. So we turned that into a flamingo. And then we did one here for a tiger, except that drawing, does that remind you of anything else you've seen that you may eat in the morning with milk? Little Tony the Tiger action? Yeah, so I told the artist, I said, nice, but I really don't want to get sued by whoever owns that cereal company, So we got to make it a little less Tony the Tiger look. Some of the artists, they don't, the inspiration comes to them, and it may have been from a commercial they saw just 10 minutes prior. So we have to always be vigilant on that. What always amazes me, though, is the sheer talent that exists, and I'm still in awe of this. For me, to send over a drawing like you see on the left to the factories in China, and to have those designers there translate that into a three-dimensional object, to me, is amazing. I'm still just in awe of, and frankly, at the better factories I use, other than the management of the factory, the designers are the next best paid, because it all hinges on the work that they do. And to me, that's pretty amazing. And it's turned out that particular item is doing very well for us, little turtle. And I took the liberty, of course, to name it after one of my grandsons, which I can't help myself. I do those things. And I couldn't help but do this either. This is one of my granddaughters, and for my grandkids that live close enough, we make sure that they do model shots for our catalog. So, cute little girl, and it just so happens that those Zibbies are doing very well. Now, I thought you might have an interest in just seeing what the inside of a typical factory is like. I use factories in China in the north, Beijing and Qingdao, and then down to Nanjing, and then in southern China in Dongguan and Shenzhen. And that's primarily where the factories are located that I use, for those of you that are familiar with China. It's getting hard, I might say, for the factories, the light industry in China. A lot of the governments are very much more interested in higher tech business, and they're making it very hard for the light industry guys. The regulations and such are making it very hard. Some of our people are moving out of China now and going back to countries that we've already been in and left, like Indonesia and Vietnam. But So here you go. This happens to be a factory in Suzhou, which is about 2 hours west of Shanghai. This happens to be a Korean-owned factory. Okay, a lot of people riding bikes to work. A lot of the factories provide transportation with buses and stuff for the employees to come to work. This is a larger factory in the stuffed animal business. 1,200 machines is a pretty big factory. A lot of the factories I use now are much smaller, 250, 500 machines. The 1,200 is substantial. And the bottom right, you can't see it because the light's so well. That's a stuffing machine. What he's stuffing is I think that's a Winnie the Pooh. This factory does a lot for Disney corporate. The skins that we call them skins, they're sewn inside out and then reversed. Some of you have done the Build-A-Bear experience. But the little stuffing is a little nozzle, and you stick. There's a hole that's left open, and thank you. Then you hit a pedal, and it blows polyfibers into the stuffed animal. Then they use a rod, a polished steel rod, to push the fibers all the way to the appendages, the fingers and the arms and the legs and so on. Some of them get a little aggressive with those and poke holes, but hopefully they're caught later. So that's how that works. Yeah, those are Winnie the Poohs, okay. And so then now those have been stuffed. Now they're closing the hole where the stuffing went in by hand. And then in the case of the bottom, those are Tiggers, also Disney, and those are all being hand striped, hand sprayed. So that's what the hood is that takes the toxic fumes out and so on. So a lot of touches by human hands in stuffed animals. That was one of the big changes for Playvisions when they bought the company. They had no conception of the amount of human contact that making one of these requires. They were used to injection molded, blow molded, rotary molded products. And so this was a big departure, and I took one of the partners of the company with me to one of these factories so he could see. I also got him off my back on pricing issues. He didn't understand why a big stuffed animal this tall, and there wasn't a big price difference for one that was this big. And the reason is the amount of labor required to make one this big and this big are about the same. You know, in fact, it's sometimes more because it's harder to do small goods. Okay, in a lot of the factories, the workers live in dormitories that are in the complex where the factory is. They're provided housing, and the cafeteria is over there, fed 3 good meals a day. And then there's medical. In most of these factories that we use, they offer medical coverage and even daycare. I try to use only the best factories for 2 reasons. One is that I think it's good business. And secondly, I know I pay more, and the way I judge a factory is usually I find out how many of the workers come back to work after the Lunar New Year. Because typically, with this much being provided the employees as far as what would normally be expenses to them, if they get a high percentage of their workers back, to me that tells me that the factory is being fair with them and that they're a good employer. Because a lot of these workers will leave, and if they come from provinces far away from, in this case, Suzhou, they're coming home a lot of times with more cash than their family has seen in a very long time. And for them to return is a good thing. And so that's one of the ways I judge. In addition to, obviously, you want to use a factory that keeps the law and doesn't break the law. So, this is lessons learned, and I need to fly through this pretty quick because I want to leave time for Q&A. But, you know, the Dare to Dream, I had a lot of people telling me that my concept of starting a company and the way I wanted to do it wouldn't work, including my accountant that I love to death, you know. But I told him, I said, Eric, you're a bean counter. Have you ever done anything entrepreneurial? No. And I said, would you? Absolutely not. I said, well, don't project your fears, you know, onto me. I said, I have a dream. I think I can do this. I know the toy business. And as it turned out, it worked out. But so dare to dream. Don't be afraid of mistakes. I've certainly made my share. One of those, I thought you might get a kick out of, is a recent one. We got this crazy idea that by taking a stuffed animal and then sticking a fan in it would be kind of cute. We'd have to charge $4.50 wholesale for it, which meant it would retail, anywhere from $10 to $15. But for fans, people pay that, right? Well, that's all fine and good, but the problem is that they didn't work. We got a big shipment from the factory, and it was partially my fault. The design on it wasn't that great. These fan blades tend to fold back, and when you hit it, sometimes it doesn't start, and then there were other issues. The noses weren't put on properly. Anyway, we're sitting on thousands of these things, and they came in, and I, well, oops. There's not a lot you can do. We went back to the factory in this case. This is another good case of using a good factory. For the mistakes that they made, they gave us a credit, and then we were able to go out and discount them and inspect them and then blow them out, for whatever we could get for them. So I just shipped a huge quantity of these to the Falkland Islands. Anybody been there? I guess they're into penguins down there. I remember that they fought Argentina at one point over something, but they're also into tourism and penguins, so there you go. If you go to the Falkland Islands, please don't tell them that these were a real loser for me, okay? Of course, I only paid $1 for them, so. Other items have been losers. I don't seem to have any of those on the table here. This isn't a loser, but it was kind of a fun one. Let's call them a flugel. One of the owners of our company went down to Alabama, I think, and came back with a whole box full of these different animal calls, squirrel calls, elk calls, whatever they are, duck calls. And one of them was a squirrel call. And we thought, oh, we could put that in a stuffed animal and do something fun. But this one, this looks a little bit like my father-in-law, so. And we found out that the head's a little too heavy, so the next production runs we're changing it, and actually I'm upgrading the designs a little bit. But anyway, this is one that was kind of okay, but it's doing all right for us. But 80% of the new toys that are introduced in January and February markets next year will fail. That's just part of the business, The chance of hitting on everything it's virtually non-existent. So don't be afraid of mistakes. Become a good student of your market. It really helps improve your chances of success if you've spent the time studying the market. Who else has brought out similar products that you may be interested in doing, and really studying it. And then, by all means, when you start to have some success, try not to let it go to your head and become too full of yourself. Any of the girls here have Cabbage Patch dolls growing up? I won't ask if any of the guys did. But can anybody name the company that made Cabbage Patch dolls? Who?
Was it Born again? Born something?
No.
Just Born?
Actually, it did. Coleco. Yeah, Coleco. They made a ton of money. Bought a big building, expanded their staff, expanded their product line. They wanted to be a Mattel, or a Hasbro. Well, now they're a name very few people, except remembering the letter C, remember who they were. Don't get too full of yourself. Try to maintain some level of humility. And by all means, do not sacrifice your character and your ethics. It's easy in international business, in business really anywhere, I guess, to shortcut things. And I know friends who have Hong Kong bank accounts and they have large amounts of money sitting there tax-free. And that's fine if it's legal. But, that money is parked illegally because they bring over cash every time they come, and they just stop off and pick up $10,000 or $9,999 because there's a $10,000 limit, and stick it in their pocket and bring it in untaxed. They can live with themselves, and that's fine, and I'm not judging them. It's just I'm choosing not to do that because with what I know, that doesn't match up to my value set. So I'd recommend. And also, if you're ethical and honest, allow the manufacturers to make money. Don't grind them down so far that they can't make money or they don't want to do business with you. And when you've got a rush or you need a favor, why would they do that for you if they're not making money doing business with you? And then stick with it. Okay, and then this is a quote that's loading very slowly that you've all read before from President Hinckley, which I ascribe to. My career has given me the opportunity the way I've pursued it, I have a lot of freedom in my time. So I've been able to go to my kids' ball games, and participate on vacations and do things that are fun with my children and spend quality time. To me, that makes a lot of difference. I've known too many guys that have sacrificed everything, including family, so that they could have the country club memberships and and all the trappings of success, only to discover that they're very unhappy. That doesn't happen for everybody, but I know a bunch that have. So anyway, and then this, of course, this great admonition from the Savior, which I've totally subscribed to. It really doesn't mean anything if you gather everything and then you give up your soul in the end. So if you stick to those values, I think you'll do pretty good. And now it's time for you guys. So, okay, we'll start off here, right in the front.
Kind of along with that last quote, like when you first started your business, how much time did you have to spend away from your family? What was the most difficult thing about starting your business?
Good question. Do you hear it in back? When I first started, how did I allocate my time? And well, it was a challenge. When I first started Cascade Toy, I was serving as a bishop. I'd been called about a year before that, and of a big ward, so it was demanding, being able to split up the time. And I did make mistakes along the way of spending too much time at being bishop, for example. Sometimes I'd go over during my lunch hour and stay for 2 hours doing stuff, figuring out where I was going to go. And I was figuring out I was spending 30 hours a week being bishop. And finally my stake president said, "Hey, I love you, Bishop Perry, but you know what? You're spending too much time. You shouldn't be spending any more than," I think he said, 20 hours, a week. And so I cut back. I did make mistakes that way, but I discovered that all the work and all the things that I was acquiring through that work, while it helped the company succeed faster, I missed things that I really regret now that I did. So my advice to you is from a hindsight, looking back and saying it's not worth it. There's ways to do both. Yes, young lady there.
What was your biggest marketing way to get this out to the public to show them?
Trade shows. Trade shows was the best way to get the word out. Going there and showing your toys and doing your dog and pony show and say, "Do you think my toy is cooler?" And just try to get people excited about it. Then you start the ball. One of our first customers was the San Diego Zoo, and I think they were our customer like 001 or 003 or 4, and they became a loyal customer. Well, then other people see it, and the buyers talk about it, word of mouth, and it goes from there. But I wasn't the newbie to the toy business either, so people knew me. So let's go to this side. Yeah.
How did you find the factories in China? Do you speak Chinese? Or?
No, I'm horrible at this. I speak English, and I don't even do that very well. I do not speak Chinese, either Cantonese or Mandarin. I don't speak Korean. I'm fortunate enough to have people with me when I'm there who do speak the language, and so I rely heavily upon them. So I wish I had more skills, but frankly, we're moving countries so much, I would have to be really a linguist to keep up on all the languages that are required. There was another part of your question.
I guess just how did you find the factories?
I'd already had contact with a lot of the factories through the repping that I did. And then it's just a matter of asking other guys, who are you using? Are they successful? Are they good? Do you like working with them? And that's how it begins. In the back on the right there, black shirt, yeah.
How do you come across new technology? Like you mentioned the last one, how do you find it? How do you assure that it's not dangerous for children to be using it?
Good question. How do you find the materials? Well, in this case, it was easy because Playvisions was already making, they'd already sold, not all of it had this weird, strong, stringy hair. They'd already sold something like 25 million pieces of these hats you could stretch over the head. So it was already a part of the toy product line. And all I did was just figure out a way to adapt it to stuffed animals and make something really strange that happens to be working. By the way, I'm waiting for a memorandum of understanding today, or maybe tomorrow, from a company up in Montreal that wants to buy the publishing rights, and they actually want to buy our zibbies.com website, which is an interactive site that kids can go to. Well, that will be exciting. And the deal I made with them is that I get a piece of the pie on anything that I do, so I'm liking that too. So we hope that they want to pay a lot of money for that. Yes, over here.
I know you worked for a toy company previously, but what made you think that you could start just a toy company? What gave you that idea?
Well, first of all, what made me think that I could start a toy company? I had no concept when I was at BYU that even anybody sold toys. You know, I mean, really, I mean, who does that? You know, somehow they appear on the shelves, you know. I didn't know. The concept of everybody, you know, how many people here on campus, you know, someday I'm going to have a career in the toy business, you know. It's just strange, you know, you don't think of those things. It all happened by, I think, divine providence kind of steering me in a direction. But the reason I felt I could do it and succeed is that I had spent years in the toy business, and I felt like I understood it. And even though it was rudimentary, I understood what bad toys look like and how those are taken to market, and how toys with absolutely no value have succeeded. I mean, I sold some real garbage. I got to tell you, Milky the Marvelous Milking Cow, I got to diverge on this. This was a cow with Kenner. Yeah, none of you played with it, right? You put the head down into some water, you pump the tail, it sucks the water up into the udders where there's white tablets. Honest. And then white milk comes out. Now, how disgusting is that? You know, I sold that. I'm guilty. I even did one called Breezy and Babe that never made it to market. This was the horse that gave birth. Honest. Toy Fair 1979 Kenner catalog, you can verify it. It had a little dial on the chest, and it had a little conveyor thing, and this little foal would get to the end and drop out. It was a big hit with accounts in certain parts of the country, but ultimately Kenner never made it because Toys R Us and those guys didn't want to have anything to do with it, wisely. So, I didn't give you anything yet. Okay. This is a meerkat. Okay, let me go to the back. I'll get you. The soccer shirt back there.
I have a question about like the cleanliness of your product when it comes from, it touches so many hands.
Yes.
In China, and like, do you guys wash it, or is there any question about that at all?
Cleanliness. The standards that the factories use are quite rigid, the factories that we use. Most of the factories that we use manufacture for companies like Disney and others that have very high standards as far as cleanliness goes. But to your question is no, we don't. We safety test the product. They all go through X-ray machines, for example, before they're boxed up to make sure there's not a broken needle or anything that's in there that could hurt a child. The funny elastomer stuff you see there is all safety tested as far as the paints and the materials themselves. They're non-toxic. These have to be, and I should mention this, I didn't do this morning on the TV thing, but if you have kids at home and they're under 3, wait until they're 3 on these, just because these will break. Okay, and I'd hate for them to bite them off and stuff, so we age grade these 3 and up. So safety, we go as far as we can. That's actually a new burgeoning business in the Orient, which is testing labs. It's a great time to be an owner of a testing lab because we're all being made to test more than we've ever had to be. So I don't want to hit anybody. Can we do a relay back to him? Yep. Okay, you here.
What was the most difficult part about starting a business?
Well, the most difficult part was leveraging everything and putting my family at risk. We could have lost our house in this thing. And but either just blind stupidity on my part or naivete, and that same trust, I guess, in my wife and me, you know, we made it through it somehow, you know. But it was an educated thing. I knew the business, and it wasn't just a flying off the handle. So that was probably what gave me the most pause, was not what it does to me personally, but what would it do to my family if this thing doesn't work, you know. So that's very honestly kind of where I was. Yeah, right here.
I was curious about where you come up with your ideas with this. Do you go to little kids and ask them about it, or do you just have a little team that groups it together? And second of all, when you create a product,
Yeah.
what motivates you to continue on with the product and think that it'll be successful 4 or 6 months down the road?
Well, we come up with ideas, the first part of your question, in all sorts of ways. Some of it's very rudimentary, like in Florida, our sales reps down there want more alligators. Okay, and flamingos. So I look at it, or do I really want to make an alligator and a flamingo? And if I did, what would it look like? Now, this is one that got rejected. I won't give it to one of you guys because I'll give it to the next class. They'll think it's not rejected. But the face is just not cute, At least I don't think so. And but in this case, but the final one will look a lot like this. But we went out on the limb a little bit, went ahead and made University of Florida colors for this, just for what the heck, they buy a lot of gators down there. So sometimes we do it specifically targeted to schools or to specific things. Different regions of the country. Meerkats are big. Meerkat Manor, all of you probably watched that once or twice. Orangutans are big right now. So you follow the trends. You listen to what the customers are asking for at trade shows. And they may be asking for specific products. So the way that goes is the way we follow. There's not a lot of high science in that. Yeah.
From Washington, what made you decide to base your company in North Bend?
Oh, my office only was in North Bend. Okay, that's where I live. And I warehoused in Seattle, Tukwila, Auburn, that area. If you're from there, you know. Seattle's a good place because of the size of the port. The Seattle port's relatively modern, and Tacoma is relatively modern, and it was a good place to import to. The transit times to Seattle actually are less than it is to Long Beach in California. Yeah. Yes, here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, have you ever licensed out any of your products or designs to other companies besides yours?
Yes and no. The ideas that I come up with, I get paid for within the company and the arrangement that I have. So I get a percentage of everything that's sold. So I get a royalty, basically, in addition to my salary and so on. So we are licensing some of the things we've developed here to other companies, which is interesting. We're making like a Spider-Man with stretchy arms for Universal Studios. And we're doing a Woody Woodpecker with the funky hat, you know. And a Thing 1, Thing 2 with the weird hair. And so we're doing stuff like that, but yeah. Yes?
Did you
Well,
sit down and set goals, like at what point did you want to make this much or spend this much? At what point were you going to take more profits out of your business for personal reasons or where to put it? Did you have a plan or did you kind of just develop it as you went?
Well, as a psych major, I've got to tell you, I kind of did it as I went. All right? I had to pay an accountant $150 or something an hour to teach me how to read a P&L and a financial statement. Okay? I wish I'd have taken more accounting classes. I wish I'd have taken more business classes, but I didn't. I learned the hard way that way. Yeah. But sometimes I wasn't taking salary so that I could make payroll for everybody else. But that's part of the risk that you take sometimes.
So when you set goals, maybe not related to that, you wanted to do this or you wanted to do that kind of work for it? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I set goals that, I wanted to do $3 million this year, and then $5 million and so on and so forth. How do I do that? Do I expand the product line? What do I do to accomplish that? One of that led to buying a company that I wish I hadn't bought, because it wasted a lot of my time. Not that it wasted that much money. It was $75,000, and it was a company that was on the ropes, but it wasted a lot of my time. Over here.
How many new products do you usually come out with a year, and then do you put them into full production right away, or
Yeah.
do you do like a test?
How many new products? Well, now that I'm just running a division of another company, I typically only bring out, in January we'll introduce maybe 4 dozen new items just for my division. And we're dropping the purchase orders right now for those so that they'll get shipped in December. It takes about 90 days or so. And then we'll be in stock when we go to market in January. So that's how we do our product cycling, like that. But there you go. Let me go to her.
I just wanted to know, once you were in the toy business, what was it about it that made you want to stay?
In the toy business? It was fun. That's it. And it gave me lots of flexibility. My time was mine, and it's really a fun industry. For me, it's real exciting to create a product, to go to market with it, see the buyer's reaction to it, and then see it succeed at retail. To me, that's huge. Yeah.
With your wife, in regards to your wife, was she always there helping and supporting you and working with you on that?
My wife's been great. She's not even in the audience, so I don't have to say it. But no, she's been awesome all along. Yeah. I already hooked you up, didn't I? Okay. Yeah. Let me go up here, okay? Yeah.
Is there one decision either in your education or your career path that you over again you would change?
Education, career paths, would I change anything? I've made mistakes along the way, you know. Like that company I mentioned, I wish I hadn't plunked down the $75,000 for them and a couple $100,000 worth of time and money that it wasted. I wish I hadn't have done that. But I think most of all, there's a warehouse lease I wish I wouldn't have signed, you know, when I signed it at the time, because it came just before the selling of the company. You know, and then I had this lease that I was burdened by. But they're little things. All in all, I've really tried to on a spiritual note, I've tried to follow spiritual direction in business decisions. And that has helped me eliminate a lot of mistakes that I would have made otherwise, I believe. That's me. Yeah.
How did you pick your employees and partners at the beginning after your kind of bad experience with guys who like to go from?
What was the first part of the question?
How did you pick the employees? How did you go about hiring at the beginning before?
How did I pick the employees? Well, that's always a challenge, you know, to know if you've really got somebody good. And I made mistakes along the way, you know, people that didn't work out. But on the more high-level people like sales managers and stuff, you usually go with referrals and make sure that you know how well they've done in other areas. My partner was a different deal. He and I are still friends. It's just, it wasn't working out for us, you know, particularly since I was paying for an apartment, you know, that he was using for other things. So I think, yeah.
What's your, how do you think the current economic situation will affect your industry in the next year, 2 years? Any ideas?
It's already hit us big time, the current economic situation, because not so much of the credit crisis that we're all embroiled in now, but the weakness of the U.S. dollar and the surge of the Chinese currency has really created a huge problem. Because, you know, and the factories in China don't like it either, because it's harder for U.S. companies to do business with them. So it's a huge problem. Now the dollar's getting stronger and things are evening off a little bit, but some of the price increases we were forced to pass along were not good, and they hurt business. So, and now with the other crisis, there's less discretionary dollars out there. So people, frankly, they're not buying as many toys, you know, as they would have otherwise. So, whoops, sorry. Yeah, over here.
Did you ever have anyone doubt you, and if so, did that motivate you or discourage you?
Oh yeah, plenty of people doubted me, but to me, if I really believed in it, it didn't matter. I would try to be humble enough to listen to their constructive advice, but sometimes you just have to dare to dream. You know, it's cliche sounding, but that's what the reality was. Yeah, here and then here. Okay.
Kind of just more associated with what he was asking about the economic situation. I guess supposedly tourism, I'm assuming, plays a big part in some of your...
Yes, tourism definitely does, particularly in a large part, because we do so much with resort or vacation spots. Yeah.
So just with the I guess tourism market is pretty much down.
Oh yeah.
Quite a bit now.
Universal Studios called me the other day and wanted me to come down for some meetings on some products we're developing for them. They're putting in Harry Potter theme parks, or sections in all their parks in 2009. So we're busily developing all the Harry Potter stuffed animals for them. So they had this big emergency meeting. So I go to Orlando, and there's anybody from Orlando? They've got the Cypress, or it's the Grand Cypress. Anyway, it's like a Hyatt Regency, really upscale. I've never been able to stay there for any less than like $350 a night. I got a room for $115. You know, I thought things must be bad in Orlando. You know, of course it's the off season. Everybody's back in school too. I promised you here.
Yeah, I just have I don't know if I can word this right, but have you ever had to turn down opportunities? Because I've already liked your counsel about keeping your priorities straight
Yeah.
as far as business and family. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs get caught away
Yep.
in endeavors and they keep falling and might not know what's happening?
I've lost business. I've made less money. That was one of the rips with my partner. He said to me, he says, if we just padded our expenses, we could make another $30,000 or $40,000 a year. Now, padding your expenses, for those of you that don't know, it means you go to McDonald's and you spend $5, you expense $10. Little bits, dribs, and drabs along the way. But I explained to him, I said, you and I are 50-50 partners. If you pad your expenses and I don't, you're stealing from me. So that, but yeah, I'll tell you, I have made less money, probably, than I could have had I cut corners, like so many of my friends have and do now. But they can do it the way they want to do it, and I'll do it the way I'm going to do it. And I think in the end that being able to sleep at night is a good thing. Yeah. Let me get him and then you. Okay.
You said that you set up the internet, and you do a lot of marketing over the internet, and has that helped a lot, or do people actually get to see the toy to be able to play with it?
The internet marketing has been marginal as far as its effect. To be perfectly candid. Yeah, that's a big part of it. Although the Zibby's website, which is more an interactive where kids can go and play games and stuff like that, has helped drive the brand, and we're getting a lot of business through that. And then hopefully through the sale of the site, somebody will come in and invest, a lot of moolah and turn it into something really cool. Because it's pretty rudimentary right now. Yeah. And you, yeah.
I was going to ask, what systems have you put into place to automate what you have to deal with as an entrepreneur? Like, do you have assistants? You said you outsource most of the work of your factories. Do you outsource assistants to India? Because I'm reading a book where the guy's talking about how to handle your life where you don't have to be in the office. How they take care of it and they make.
In my business, it's been real hard to automate and to use some of the new technology that exists. It's so manual labor driven that and frankly, in doing business in the Orient, I do as much on the phone and teleconferencing and everything that I can. But in the end, sitting down at a table with somebody across from the table and looking them in the eye,
Well, just think of your day-to-day stuff, like emails.
Oh, yeah.
This, that, and the other.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my cost in shipping samples, for me to send a box of these that weigh hardly anything, in a box to China, it's a couple $100. You start shipping samples back and forth regularly, it's a big ticket. But now, I said, send me photos, email, before you do anything. Because a lot of it I can pick off by looking at the face. I see the face on a stuffed animal, that's ugly. We need to change that. Move the eyes, do this, blah, blah, blah. And then they change it and send again. When it's to the point, and I say, okay, send samples. But see, then we provide them our UPS number. So, they don't charge me for the samples, but I pay the shipping. That's usually what's done. So it's good for them, and it's okay for us. So I keep wanting to get rid of that one, but you guys, I just told you that it wasn't so good, so I can't do that. I've got you once. Let me ask her. I'll get back to you.
How do you find the designer with the artists to draw the pictures
How do I find the designers? Usually it's just word of mouth. Somebody speaks highly of somebody, I'll inquire. They'll send me a mini portfolio that I can see on email. And it just really depends. I've got the guy that designed that turtle, for example, that you saw in the PowerPoint. Really talented, but when I needed to design, I'm doing a weird, this is, okay, now I'm giving you some inside scoop here. But this is kind of outside of what I normally do, and it's kind of gross, so PlayVisions is kind of growing on me because they make a lot of gross stuff. But get this, and you can give me some feedback here. We're doing a self-inflating whoopee cushion. The company is. They sell that kind of stuff, okay? We have inflatable tongues and everything. But, so I'm thinking, why don't we put one of those in a platypus? Just a funky-looking platypus, and put this whoopee cushion, so when you sit on it, it does its thing, And I thought, it could be funny, maybe not, maybe, But you do that, but there's only certain artists that I know can draw something like that, so I send it to them. But right now, I just got the artwork this morning, and we'll see. It doesn't cost me anything to send over some whoopee cushions, have them make it, and if it's funny, it's funny. And so if you see a platypus that makes obscene noises, that's my fault. Okay. All right. If you got any other questions, feel free to come up and I'll talk to you, but we better wrap it for the... Thank you, guys.